If you are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact and more revenue in your business, tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Campbell Rapin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers that convert consistently. We'll see you all on the inside. Welcome back, everybody. One of the biggest things people say to me when they are contemplating making really big impact is this question, who am I to dream so big? And I always respond with this simple statement. I'd like you to look in the mirror and introduce yourself to yourself. Today, I want to talk about a really, really important conversation, and it is about unlocking your self-confidence because big impact awaits you. And it is a work in progress. I'm super excited to introduce you today. Our guest, Sheena Yapchan, is an incredible human being, helping people really bring their self-belief and their past into the future. Sheena, welcome. Super excited to have you here today.
Hey, Christine, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super excited to chat about unlocking self-confidence, which is something we all, including myself, work on every single day. So, yeah.
I love that because this is the truth. We do work on it. Beware of putting people on pedestals and think they have got it all together, because the truth of the matter is we are all a work in progress. And I want to talk a little bit about your story because you are building a very big worldwide momentum around confidence. And chances are you didn't start this journey on day one saying, I'm going to go do that. So let's talk first at how on earth did you get here? And why is this a non-negotiable for you to change people's perspectives around?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a great question. Everything really started from my upbringing, growing up in Toronto in the early 90s, not seeing anybody that looked like me in the media. I always felt ashamed of myself, of my culture, and how I look like. I really wanted to have blonde hair and blue eyes to feel more accepted and beautiful. And I actually did dye my hair blonde at one point and actually colored it back to my original hair color. And that's when I realized who I really was, my culture, and embrace everything. But in 2015, I was really dealing with a lot of confidence issues, and I was on the internet trying to look for, resources that especially cater to Asian women, but there wasn't any. And so part of me thought something was wrong with me because I was the only one feeling not good enough, feeling like I have to please everybody else before myself, feeling like I had to be perfect to a T. And really, a lot of women dealt with it, right? It's just we never talked about it. And so I started my podcast, The Tao of Self Confidence, and interviewed women on their journey to self confidence. So I had that as a support system and creating representation. Up till now, I've interviewed over 800 women on the topic of confidence. The podcast has gained over 1.3 million downloads and able to make it to the top 0.5% global shows. And I never thought that would ever happen. I was like, I just want to create something to help women out there. And that also led to writing books because I really wanted to create more visibility, dismantle the negative stereotypes we go through so we can really show up. And so you can see my books. My first one is called The Tao of Self-Confidence, a guide to moving beyond trauma and awakening the leader within, which we will talk about that concept and process. And then I have my upcoming book here, which is Bridging the Confidence Gap, How Empowered Women Change the World. And, this stems from the World Economic Forum mentioning that it's going to take at least 130 years for gender parity to be achieved. And I don't think anyone wants to wait that long. I know I don't. And they said this is at the least. So it might even take longer. And I believe it might take longer just because of what we're going through in the world as women. So I also do speaking engagements, corporate training on confidence and leadership for women executives, for employees, because I understand that confidence in the workplace is a necessity so that you can have better productivity and, of course, better profit margins.
That shocks me, and it doesn't shock me at the same time because I I was in a room this week in my business rooms I curate because I think the wrong conversations are happening. I don't think we have safe spaces. And I think we are waiting for somebody else to rescue us. Truthfully, the world does not want to be saved. You have to save yourself. And it is about by having brave conversations, and representation does matter. I love that you're passionate about supporting women. And I love that you had this awareness that I don't see what I reflect out there. So I have two choices. One, I can dye my hair. Glad you made that as a temporary stop in your destination. Or I can also start to build what I don't see happening. And that's true in the world of business. When we talk about amplifying our message, I said, if you don't see a seat at the table for you, pay attention. It's because you get to go create it. And that always leads to the question which we began our episode with, which is, who am I to dream so big? And a lot of people have garbage, trauma, and things that didn't maybe go their way in their lives. And you have a real philosophy that trauma is important and a stepping stone. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I always get the same question that everybody asks, right? How do you build confidence? How do you increase confidence? What can I do to build more confidence in my life? And, I can share 101 different ways to build confidence. Like, that's not hard. But, the harder question is like, what is that root cause that's really stopping you from moving forward, right? And trauma plays a huge role in that because we all go through traumatic experiences and we don't talk about it. We don't find ways to heal from it. So, of course, if we don't find an outlet to work through our unresolved trauma, we're not going to show up as our best self. So, instead of asking, how can I build confidence? It's more like, what is the root cause that's stopping me from moving forward to show up as the best leader, to show up as the best entrepreneur? And then, because even till today, there's still people who aren't aware of their traumas, right? And, people also don't realize we carry not only our own traumas, but the traumas of our parents, our grandparents. Intergenerational trauma is very prevalent, and we don't talk about that. And
Mhm.
I think for women, we also carry historical trauma, right? Like women have always been second class to men in history, right? Like most of the time, especially in Asian culture. And so, I mean, if that's the same thing that's been carried on from generation to generation, I mean, there's going to be so much trauma that we still have to work through. So, it's not easy. It's not a pretty thing to do to work through your traumas. It can get very ugly, but it's also necessary so that we can move forward to show up as the best human being, the best woman, the best female leader, the best female entrepreneur out there. Because I do believe that if we have more women in leadership, whether it's entrepreneurship, corporate, or government, this is how we can solve the big world problems we're going through. And it's been said that when there's more women in those spaces, it helps everybody. It's a win-win situation for everybody.
Absolutely. And I think what is so important, it is absolutely the question we skate right past. Hello, two Canadians in the room here. We're going to skate right past it. It's winter here. Is this question of what? What's happened? What's going on? What do I want? And I think a big elephant in the room is we think we can't answer that question. We can't get clear what we want. And I said, we want to be represented. We want to have a voice at the table. We want to create a table. And it is a journey that you said is going to be messy. It's going to have confrontation in it, tension, emotional volatility. And as you walk through this, how do we keep human in this journey? Because our perception of women and of ourselves is, I can do it all. I can be it all. I can have it all. And that's not a net sum game. And when we can't compute it, we fall apart. So, how do we care for ourselves?
Yeah. First off, I'm also Canadian. So
I know, seriously, right?
the
Canadians in the house
winters
too.
are not great, but I do love the city. I love Toronto, very multicultural, lots of and right now there's, like, Taylor Swift mania happening right now, so all the Swifties are downtown, but, I mean, one thing I was never taught to do was learn to love myself and also to take care of myself, right? Self-love and self-care is really important in our journey. I wish they taught that in schools because I think that's a real life necessity that we need to teach our kids.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there's been reports that said that girls as young as 6 already start having confidence issues. Can you imagine that? As young as 6. And so, like in my book, The Tao of Self-Confidence, I talk about self-love and self-care and why it's so important. And self-love doesn't mean that you have to love only the good parts of yourself. It's the good, bad, and the ugly. And Before, I used to only love the good parts of myself. I thought that's what self love was, but by interviewing so many women on my podcast, I realized, oh, it's way more than that. It's that unconditional love, right? Because if you can't unconditionally love yourself, how do you expect to attract the right person to love you for who you are, the good, bad, and the ugly, right? And so it's really important to practice that, right? I know sometimes we look in the mirror, I'd be like, oh my God, my love handles are sticking out of my jeans. I got a big pimple on my face. I look terrible. I knew as women, we're our like worst critic, right? And so
100%.
I'm the same way, and I tell people, we treat ourselves like we're our own worst enemy. But, if you were with your best friend, you would treat her like the most important person in the world. Because if your best friend said the same thing, what would you tell her? You're delusional. You're beautiful. Stop saying that, right? And so we need to do the same thing for ourselves, right? We need to be our own best friend and say, your love handles are fine. You're beautiful. That pimple, it's okay. It's going to go away. You're still hot. And so having that self love is important. And self care, very important. We really need to learn to take care of ourselves. One of the biggest things that women have gone through, especially during the pandemic, was burnout, right? Burnout was prevalent. Like there's been, they had studies where women were way more burnt out than men. And I totally get that, right? Especially during the pandemic when we were all locked down. You're not only taking care of your business and working, you're also taking care of your kids, you're homeschooling your kids, you're running errands for your parents or your family, other family members, you're grocery shopping, you're doing like 10 million things at once to the point where you're just emotionally exhausted and physically exhausted that then you start feeling you're not good enough because you feel like you're not doing enough when in reality you're doing more than enough, right? And so this is why it's important to create a self-care routine, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, right? It's better than nothing. So if it means just taking a walk outside for 5 minutes, do it. If it means going into your bathroom and screaming, do it, right? Find a self-care routine that works for you, of course, because everyone's different. What I do might not work for you and vice versa. So, I like to take walks. I like to clear my head doing that. Sometimes I just like watching like 90 Day Fiance, you know?
You do you, boo. That's what I tell people all the time.
Ex-
And I think the
exactly.
ultimate act of self care is just asking yourself, am I okay?
Yeah.
And this is such a powerful question. I talk a lot about leadership because I believe, in my case, business is the vehicle we talk about making impact. And to have self leadership is to say, am I okay? Am I doing what is required? Am I standing in my values? Am I breathing? I'm biologically wired to breathe, but truthfully, I may be taking a tenth of the breath I should be, that I am capable of breathing, because I have to ask myself, am I okay? Before we can put the oxygen mask on around anyone else. And I will tell you, because a lot of people look at the outside of my world and say, how do you do it all? And I said, let's just be clear. I'll share one thing I have. Every month in my calendar, I have a reminder. It's on a Sunday, and it's a self care check in. And it's my question while I'm having a cup of coffee, 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings, am I okay? Am I doing the things that fill my cup? Am I protecting enough time in my calendar to breathe? And what am I going to do for myself? Because I want to do that for myself in the next 30 days. And this is a profound moment to breathe. And I think all of us, you're right, we would never say the things we say to ourselves to another human being ever. A highly edited version, even that, unlikely to come out of our lips. And so choose you. In business, I say to people, there is without a doubt a moment in everybody's journey where I said, you chose you. And that made all the difference. And I want, and probably us collectively, want women to tell other women, you get to choose you. You get to choose to represent you, all of you, the imperfect, the works in progress, and the aspirations of the potential that's within. And so I want to ask you, how do you start this journey? Because we all nod our heads and say, I'm into that. But we're still struggling. And that's why your podcast is so popular. We're still going, find me the red jelly bean, please, because this is not moving from theory to action in a sustained way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And you know what? Starting is always the hardest in anything you do. Even myself, there's times where I delayed myself because I was so afraid when I realized when I just started, it was like it wasn't as bad as I think it was. So
Always.
sometimes, your journey just takes that first step, whatever that first step looks like, right? Whether it's seeking help, researching, doing the work, putting yourself out there. I always say it's doing the small, actionable daily steps is what yields the big results. So, let's say you want to write a book because a lot of people want to write a book. And of course, writing a book can be very daunting because you're like, oh my God, I got to do 50,000 words. I don't know where to start. So, what you can do is you set a goal, right? You say, every day I'm going to write 1 page a day for a year straight, right? It's not that much, right? One day a day, one page a day. So imagine if you really stuck to that 1 page a day for 365 days straight, you would have one book, or you can even have two books. You can split that into two books, all because you were just committed to making that small daily actionable step. So I don't really believe in making big steps sometimes because it can help us. It won't help us. Sometimes it feels like we take three steps back because if we take that big leap and it didn't happen, then we feel bad about ourselves for not achieving that big leap, and then we go down this rabbit hole. So that's why I just say take with the first step, do it, and like break it up in like small actionable daily steps that you can do. And I also tell people Rome wasn't built in a day, so like you can't expect yourself
And
to
they
be
didn't
built
have
in
the
a day.
tools or technology we do.
Yeah, and so, nobody's an overnight success. The people that look like they're an overnight success have put in the work day in and day out to get to where they are today. So, start small, start something that you feel comfortable with, right? And if you're still scared about it, I always say, think of the worst case scenario, and if you can handle it, go for it.
I think this is such an important thing. So often we get caught in falling in love with the destination. One day I'm going to have confidence. Confidence isn't a destination future, it is a present state of being. If we instead shift from the result and falling in love with the result, but we fall in love with the habit stacks to create the momentum. The momentum leads to the result. And I love that you talk about this 1 hour a day because it could be, 5 minutes a day, go dance around your office. It could be 5 minutes. Do not look at your phone while you enjoy a cup of coffee. Don't multitask. Gift yourself a space to breathe. And it's funny, one of the things that is, I think, fascinating in two ways. I have a journal that I've been keeping, and it is a 5 year business journal, or it was a journal for 5 years. And I decided I'm going to write every day, 365 days a year, something about my life that day. I had confidence I would still be writing it in year 4 and 5. And I couldn't even imagine that what my business would look like. And from that far start date to the year 4 that I'm in now, the journey has ebbed and flowed. And I think it is just the discipline of I give myself a moment to reflect. How did the day go today? Some days they're absolutely, I'm knocking it out of the park. Other days it's like the sky is falling. I'm never going to make this work. And hello, there's 5 years of that.
Yeah.
But it is the gift I gave myself, that small moment, which I love that you're advocating. Because when you can also see your evolution through the small steps, you look in the mirror and go, wow, am I ever a badass? And I'm proud of myself. And ladies, I want you to hear this. Be proud of the journey, not just standing on the podium. So I love to ask all of my guests this question because this show is all about amplifying our message, making a big impact, connecting the dots to create big ripples. How are you in your life right now amplifying your message that you find is working to create the momentum that keeps you going?
So one of the things that I do is I have a perfect day tracker. So I have a list of things that I need to do, and I utilize that tracker to keep me accountable, right? Whether it's posting social media, reaching out to people, um, personal development. So it doesn't have to be business; can be personal. That helps me keep accountable, to show up, to not get lazy. Even though there's times, of course, we all go through that. We're
Sure.
human beings. So that's one of the things I do. Another thing I'm really passionate about doing that I talk about in my upcoming book here is the power of self promotion. Right, as women, we're not taught to promote ourselves because for so many years we've been taught it's tacky, it's not good, it's not ladylike, whatever that means. But I believe self promotion is a really great leadership skill because you build a lot of skills from it.
Mhm.
And it helps us, be out there, be present, have opportunities come to us. Like, unfortunately, we have been taught to like not take action. right? And this stems from like Hollywood movies, right? Like we look at Cinderella, even though Cinderella is one of my all-time favorite childhood movies, it's about a woman being saved by a man and he creates their happily ever after. Um, Unfortunately, in real life, that doesn't happen to every woman, right?
Yeah, we
Uh,
get to rescue ourselves.
yeah, we have to rescue ourselves.
Starting with ourselves.
We have to go out there and take action, be okay with the first move, making the first move, so we can create you create the opportunities that we want in life. So, even when it comes to um, like men have more practice and confidence, right? Like dating, right? Like if a guy goes to the club, he has one goal to get at least one girl's number, right? And he will go through 100 rejections to get that one number. And if we had the same mindset in business, imagine what we can accomplish, right? Because we're going to get rejected and it sucks. I know because I eat my feelings. But also when you get that yes, it's like the best feeling ever because like you had to go through all this to get to that one yes. So, and that's why for me, self promotion is really powerful. You put yourself out there, you're showing people your talents, your products, your services, and someone is seeing it for sure. And, they said before social media, it takes about 7 times before a person makes a buying decision to see your product or service. Now that we have TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and all kinds of social media platforms, it's going to take 5 times more of that. So self promotion is important. And for me, self promotion is empowering. I look at like the Barbie movie that broke records and made history. And
And we're
that
still in the
wouldn't have,
market.
yeah, didn't wouldn't have happened without the constant promotion, right? Being able to connect with other companies to collab, having a Barbie theme Airbnb, even having a Barbie themed Xbox, you know?
Yeah.
And because of that, it led to the first movie that was directed by a woman to $1 billion in the box office. So that's one of the things I do. I personally don't like to promote myself, but I realize I do it for other women to show them that it's okay to do it. So don't think that I love it. Honestly, I'd be watching K dramas all day if I could. So
Well, and here's where, it isn't about ego. And ladies, I want you to hear this because I am all about changing the dynamics for women in business and women as leaders and women to have that I choose me moment. The truth always comes down to your breathing. Impact awaits. You must choose to get in the game. Listen, check in with yourself, and find communities. Because do not mistake arrogance for confidence. And do not think that confidence sits by watching, observing other people. It is about recognizing the stepping stones that you're on have value. Please, Sheena and I want you to value them. How do you find more details? How does our audience connect with you, Sheena?
yeah, thank you so much. You can connect with me on my website, sheenayapchan.com, if you want to check out all my links and social media. You can also go to sheenayapchan.com/links. All my social media is there. You can order this book or pre-order my upcoming book. You can subscribe to the podcast. I also have a free self-confidence personality test that you can take very quick. You get the results right away. And I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the social media platforms. But if you forget anything from this interview, you can also Google my name, Sheena Yapchan, because I'm literally the only Sheena Yapchan on the internet.
Because you're the only one who's uniquely you.
Yes.
Guys, this has been about unlocking your self confidence. Ladies in the room, we want you to rise, go create your table, come join ours. You're welcome. I can't wait to see you there. Thank you for being our guest today, everyone. We will see you on our next episode. That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell Rapin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrapin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message.